Today I'm sitting down with Justin Tipping Hall, who is the CEO of Nanoholdings, a technologies holding company which specializes in connecting brilliant researchers and innovators in the various fields of nanotechnology with the funding and management support to make their visions of the future a more tangible reality. Many of you may remember Justin from his 2011 presentation at TED, where he talked about freeing energy and water from the grid for the benefit of all mankind using nanotechnology. Today, we get to sit down and talk directly with the source and ask some in-depth questions about the ideas Justin presented in that very compelling talk. For those of you who have not seen it yet, here's a link. Please do check this out. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Hall. Justin, thank you for being with us today. Tell us more about your company and what you do.
So thank you, and it's great to chat to you this afternoon. We are about building technology of tomorrow as it applies to the energy and water market, and it really started out of a belief that we are at a point in time for science whereby we're getting control over the building blocks of the universe, and therefore that means we can make things with properties that up until now haven't been available. So for example, we think of a material like carbon and we think of things like diamond, but when you think of a diamond, it's hard and non-conductive, but now we're able to make forms of carbon that are 1,000 times more conductive than copper. So these things occur in laboratories all over the world. One of the best places for it happening today is in universities, and our business is to go around and fund brilliant scientists, no matter what the idea is with energy and water, on the off chance that what they create changes something huge for the world. And as I say, we believe that we are at this great time in history whereby we're able to find things that are going to change, many industries across the board by virtue of these new discoveries.
Wow, this is pretty amazing stuff. Back when I first watched your TED presentation on freeing energy and water from the grid, it sparked a flurry of new ideas to my mind. At the time, I had been researching a lot of stuff on quantum computing and optical crystal technology, and when I had heard your ideas of using these advanced nanocoatings on ordinary windows and essentially turning them into solar panels and routing that light through your house, I just began to envision a future where all of our appliances and computers could be run on photonics rather than electronics, or maybe some hybrid combination of both. Researchers have been working on ways to slow light down and trap it inside of materials as well, and I imagine that this could someday be used for a storage device for light energy that could be saved up during the day by slowing the light down and trapping it somehow, and then you could take it out during the night or whatever. I also thought about, instead of copper wires running all over our house, we could have high-powered light energy traveling through fiber optics from solar panels on the roof. It just made me begin to think of light in a whole new way. The potentials of these technologies open up an entirely new realm of imaginative innovation for what the future could be like. Why don't you tell us about some of these optical technologies from your current perspective and what you're working on right now and why it's important?
Sure. So we actually are, continuing to develop the technology, and we sort of, versus where we first talked about it a couple of years ago, we are continuing to develop the ability to lay down ever thinner layers. These layers, as you can see, are starting to take on a form. We're starting to build the electronics around it, and really, what we're really focused on at a bigger picture, if you sort of step back, it's not just being able to do something simple with it, of only look at a certain part of the light spectrum. What we're really talking about is shifting light, or let me say it another way. Let me talk about it as shifting of energy. Light is, it's a wave, it's a particle, and it has lots of different frequencies. So it would be like standing on a beach, looking out at waves coming in the ocean. Some are 6 inches, some are 2 feet, some are 10 feet, some are 20 feet. They're all basically, the same water, but in a different shape. The same is true of light. and some light we can see, which is the visible spectrum. Some light, or in fact most of light, we just don't see. But we intuitively know that there is energy there. I could have my eyes completely shut and be standing out in the middle of the day, and I'm going to feel the heat coming from the sun. So I'm blind to what I'm seeing, but I can feel the energy coming at me. And so really the proposition that we've had in our mind is, since the spectrum is so vast of this different type of energy, what if you could selectively say, I want to have that piece and I'm going to move that shape to this shape? And so we hunt for materials that are able to say, I'm going to capture this and I'm going to change it into that. That opens up a number of possibilities. It opens up possibilities with regards to sight in areas where it's really dark so that I can make myself see. It opens it up in vast amounts of opportunity in energy generation, of being able to say, I take a different spectrum, thermal, and I change it to the electrical. The real hunt, therefore, is on the materials that are able to take one form and convert it to something else. And so we spend an awful lot of time thinking about what are the possibles and where you might want to hunt in the periodic table of things that could have that exquisite precision. And so I think we're going to get to a point whereby it would almost like being able to say, I see a 2-foot wave and I'm now going to make it into a 1-foot wave, and just have a thin film that completely enables that transition to occur very efficiently is obviously the goal.
Interesting. I had a specific question about the lenses you were trying to develop that would allow you to see in infrared or other light frequencies. As I understand it, this works by use of a material that would absorb radiation of one type, and that would change its state and cause it to emit light in the visible range.
Yeah.
My question is, would that process be instantaneous, or wouldn't there be a lag time as these particles in this thing sort of charged up? And certainly if there was a charge up and afterglow period for these infrared lenses or glasses, I don't think they would go over quite so well. Do you see that as a potential problem for some of these technologies?
It would be, I think, I mean, the number one objective is you never want in any technology is somebody to go, oh, it's just not quite there. I mean, imagine picking up your iPad and you sort of press the A button on the keyboard, and then 3 seconds later the A appears. I mean, that'll last about 5 milliseconds before you throw it away. And I think the same is true on all technologies. We have become so accepting that technology is instant and perfect. And if it isn't, we're not interested. And we have to do exactly the same with whatever we do, because fundamentally we are a new technology company working in the space of energy and water, and therefore we're not going to release anything until we know it has that same quality and feel. It means the challenge is pretty difficult, because you have to give that exactly the same as sort of, I need to put on my glasses and I need to then see exactly as if I'm reading with a pair of reading glasses, where I've got to see it in the same case as if I'm looking through the infrared or the thermal, whatever it is. It just takes time.
How long do you think it will be before we start seeing technologies like these actually going to market? Like a window producer like Pella, or any one of these major window producers starting a line or a chain of actual thin film nano-coated windows?
Well, the area that we're working on at the moment, when you think about the windows, if you think about the scale of a problem with a window, you're looking at something that's sort of 4 feet by 4 feet. And the only way effectively you could lay it down, other than making it when you print the glass, is a thin film coating. So that implies a spray painting technology, and your goal there is uniformity. So if you looked at a glass window, let's just sort of take it in the case of an automobile and tinting on a glass windscreen. If you looked at it from the driver's seat and you sort of look through it and you saw, I've got a darker patch there and a lighter patch there. Again, this idea of, we're all technology experts when it comes to use it. If you sat in a car that had blotches and thin spots, you'd say, oh, that's no good. So you've got to be able to lay down with fairly good consistency such that it's pretty perfect across the surface. And the only way you're really going to get that is with thin film spray coating technology. We think we will be about 12 months from having that. We've got most of the pieces figured out. We've even got a test rig whereby we're laying down some elements of the spray at the moment. The particular materials that we use to do this, one of the things is they just love to stick together. So you could sort of spray paint it down, and as you start to dry it, they all sort of do that. What you actually got to do is, as you spray paint it down, they've got to just stay where you put them. And we have been working on that chemistry, and I think we are very, very confident as to the type of thing that's going to come out at the ending part. So from a timeline of having it about 12 months, time to market is longer. You've got to go through building up a supply chain, manufacturing process, the distribution partners, and we would be doing that with large companies. Our job is to get it to the point that a large company like a window manufacturer takes it, builds it, and then distributes it. It's not what we would do.
Your company works on building the technologies of tomorrow, but many of those technologies are desperately needed today. How would you describe the role of Nanoholdings in pushing this envelope and some of the difficulties you face in the fast-paced and impatient marketplace of today?
Yeah, yes, I always think we're like a Bell Labs Xerox PARC of old. You need to give scientists sort of unfettered license to go try anything. You've got to give them enough time to be brilliant. I wished, and I've said it, I say it many times to our scientists, my job would be so easy if you could innovate by Friday, please. But of course it doesn't happen like that. It happens when it happens. And the problem that I think we face as a society is most people are pretty bloody impatient. And the really big problems, and I'm talking about things like energy and water, it doesn't help to be impatient, even though our need is here and now. And as much as it would be so nice if by Friday this week everything's solved for me, I have to operate in a mindset that says creative people are brilliant at creating. And when they get there, then you've got it. But you can't stuff them to get it done, because it just stops the creative process. So that's why I say we're sort of like a Xerox PARC of old. We create the environment, we create the funding mechanism, we create this belief that you can come up with big solutions given the brains, the talent, the money, and the vision, and most importantly, imagination, because imagination, I think, is most important, way beyond knowledge, whereby if somebody can imagine an outcome, sooner or later, they'll get there. And if the problem is big enough, when you get there, it'll make it all worth it.
Yes, yes. Albert Einstein once said that imagination is more important than knowledge. And I would have to agree, since knowledge pertains to the past or what is already known, while imagination opens up endless possibilities for the future. How do you typically seek out or identify technologies or scientists as ones that you would deem worthy of funding and support? Is there a selection process that your company goes through? You must get swamped with ideas and emails all the time. Do you have any advice for these people or scientists out there that want to write to you? Or
Yeah, mostly it's self-selecting. I think Nanoholdings has become known as an institution that is taking on these grand endeavors, really in the areas, as I said, of energy and water, because fundamentally, if you look at a history of humans, our whole timeline is essentially a timeline of coming to have exquisite control over energy and water. And therefore, people who want to solve those problems mostly search us out by referral. We have so many ideas coming at us all the time. It's really sifting between them. But it's pretty easy to figure out what we've got to do. I mean, there's no brilliance required there. It's like we've got to make energy better than we do, and we've got to be able to solve water problems for everybody, and we've got to do it in a way that's as cheap as possible, because if it's too expensive, that's just going to mean the rich few of us will have it, and the vast majority of us that don't have money won't, and that's just not very equitable.
I agree that energy and water are those key essentials to human life that I really wish every billionaire, banker, and Wall Street tycoon on the planet would just throw their fortunes at this type of research and do so for the same reasons you are, freeing energy and water for everyone. Unfortunately, those who profit off the privatization of energy and water may not agree with people like us. The rest of us, however, applaud your cause greatly. I'd like to talk for a second about two very interesting types of optical nanomaterials that I've been following developments on for quite a while now. One being metamaterials, which can bend light around objects and are being used by researchers to build, among other things, invisibility cloaks. I know you've probably heard these stories. The other is quasi-crystals, a new type of crystal which Daniel Shechtman won the 2011 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for discovering. Other researchers from Princeton University have discovered a quasi-crystal which can bend optical signals at 90-degree angles without losing any signal quality. That's on a really short basis. I mean, you can bend a fiber optic cable around a 90-degree angle, but I'm talking about instantaneous, like short scale, so we could use these to literally build. These would be basically the predecessors of optical computer circuitry.
Well, not on that, but the idea of having this control over light in a different way is a relatively new phenomenon. I think, for most of our time in school, we all learned that light moved in a straight path, and that was it. And now we think of optical networks, optical computers, we think of being able to have real practical invisibility cloaks by bending light around something. So, right, so I mean, that's here and now. I know my kids would be delighted if I said I was working on a large-scale Harry Potter coat, but I'm not sure that, having people have that as opposed to being able to drink water was necessarily the best thing. But the point is, it's all happening now, and it's happening because materials have been found to have these exquisite properties. And so, yes, I read that same thing that you were reading, and I was thinking, you know what, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like pushing photons around instead of electrons.
Right. So, we used to think of, example, when historically, we used to think of, if I want to do something electrical, I'm going to do it with copper. Well, now we can think of doing something electrical with carbon that can be 1,000 times more conductive than copper. But if you had said that 50 years ago, people would have said, no, it's just not going to happen. Right? So now I say, okay, I think of light, and I've always thought about light on an optical cable, and it'll go down a straight line, and I'll have various things along the way to boost it. But now if I could think about light being sort of moved at a right angle or moved around something, well, then it certainly comes to your imagination. Well, if you could, what could you do with it?
It certainly does. For me, personally, it's opened up an entire new realm of ideas and thinking. I can't even explain.
Yeah.
Let's talk for a minute about dihydrogen oxide technologies, aka water purification and desalination. How are nanomaterials and nanofilters changing the way we look at the problem of water purification and water recycling?
It's, you look out, I happen to live near the sea here, and you can sort of look out and you see the seawater, and you think, the whole world almost is covered with salt water, and none of it we can really drink. And the places that we get our water, we've polluted so badly, and we're withdrawing so much from the aquifer. None of us really know how much longer the aquifers are going to be around. And yet, if we're human, on a consistent basis, we realize on a daily basis, the proposition is we've got to drink water every day to survive. I mean, we're mostly water. So you've got to think about taking what water supplies we have, no matter how badly polluted we've made them, and being able to take it very quickly and turn it into fresh drinkable water. And we're doing this interview in North America, and we think nothing about going to the bathroom, turning on a tap, putting a cup underneath it and drinking it. But if ever the day you turned on the tap, the water didn't come out, that would be shocking. I mean, like, that couldn't happen in the Western world, but one day it might. And yet what we do with all the water in our house is, you just throw it away every day and get new water coming in. But there's nothing wrong with the idea of thinking about recycling 100% of the water in our house, except for maybe the icky parts, which would just leave to be done centrally. So, water in the dishwasher. Why couldn't I Why couldn't I recycle that and drink it? Because I mean, after all, it's just I got some soap. I've got some dirty food that's gone in there, but pretty much everything is. If it was okay to be on the plate and I'm eating with it, why can't I recycle that water? So one of the scientists out of India, Professor Pradeep, has developed what's been going to be probably called the safe water prawn filter. And this is a set of nanomaterials. And as you see, they're sort of different colors. And think of these like magnets, except these are nanomagnets. And the nanomagnets, because they're a different color, are designed to pull something out. I just want to have you get, so you can see the colors, right? So let's say I was taking water that was heavily polluted with arsenic, pesticides, let's say mercury, and let's say some bacteria. And if I know where I am in the world, I'm going to know mostly what's in the water. So if, for example, I'm in Chennai, I've got arsenic, I'll build an arsenic catching layer. I'm going to take some pesticides, and I'm going to take something to take out bacteria. And you put all the water in the top, and as it goes down, being pulled by gravity, it's going to pull out, just like a magnet, the material that you don't want to come out the bottom. And because the forces between molecules are so much stronger than the force of gravity, as the water comes down, being pulled by gravity, the side action, these van der Waals forces between molecules, are going to really pull out what you don't want, such that what comes out of the bottom each and every time is pure drinking water.
Interesting. A specific filter for each type of pollutant.
So you can think about water now with the same kind of precision that we were talking about with light. If we know what we're trying to do and can imagine how you'd want to take something out, the hunt then is just looking for the corresponding pair to be able to have sort of the opposite, such that these two things could attract.
So it's kind of like building tiny nano gears, which are the same size and shape as the molecules or atoms that you wish to pull out.
Bingo. That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
I have a really good imagination for the potentials of these types of technologies, but it's always nice to see a tangible prototype. Do you have any more fun toys that you'd like to show us hiding out at your computer desk there?
Well, I was just actually scrambling for most of the toys, and I realized I had sent off a couple of them back down to the labs. I've been traveling over the world, and most of the devices that I am given by the scientists are designed to work in a laboratory environment. And I say, yes, I know, but I'm going to the Middle East for 6 weeks or so. Can you give it to me? So, of course, I take this device that's meant to be a lab-scale prototype. So it means it's very fragile. I'm putting it in an airplane. I'm flying at 36,000 feet. Some guy is taking it out at the airport. What's this thing? And so, they tend to get pretty badly beaten up. But some of them are actually able to withstand very well this kind of abuse, even in the prototype stage. And the one that I had been hunting for actually is now back at the lab being repurposed. But the nice thing is that a number of these technologies have sort of gone from these ideas of, oh, I wonder if we could, and now, as you can see, we've got devices, we've got things being built. We're now working on the mass market techniques of spraying, such that in the next sort of 12 to 24 months we will have these progressed very, very far.
Excellent. I can't wait. Lastly, I'd like to talk about how to solve some of the most fundamental problems of energy storage, transformation, and distribution, especially with regards to the electrical grid, which supplies us with most of our power. A big problem with solar panels is that they only work when it's sunny, and if you have an off-the-grid system, you need to find ways to store and retrieve that energy efficiently. One way is electrochemical batteries, which are expensive, hazardous, and wear down over time. Are there any other technologies that you know of or have been working on which attempt to solve this problem of energy storage and distribution?
Yeah. So e-box is probably the nice surprise for us. E-box was never meant to be a product that would go out into the marketplace. As you see, sort of when we're making things, where they're all around energy. And what we need to have is some kind of controlling device that is able to supply a certain amount of electricity that we need with exquisite precision, and the ability to have things run a long time. And so we came up with this concept that we needed a platform to be able to plug all these test materials in to just see how they'd work. And that was how eBox pretty much got going. So we built the first one, and blow me over, it goes really well. So much so that you could take any input source of power, plug it into eBox, and pass it to the device. It meant that you could have a solar cell, a wind turbine off the grid. And eBox essentially started out as a computer. And the more we started to work with it, the more we realized that this actually is a device like a refrigerator. And instead of storing milk, it stores electricity with exquisite precision, such that I can take energy from any source, I can capture it and hold it and pass it to the house, and you would never know that was going on. So you could have the power grid go down and your lights don't even flicker. Within half a cycle, it's switched over, and any device that's operating in the home just continues to run along, and it can't even detect that something has changed on the energy supply side. So we went through one version, we built the second version, and now we're trying to make it into a mass market price point, and by that we mean it's got to be priced roughly at where a refrigerator is. And what that would enable is every home would be able to have a smart sensing energy power management device, constantly monitoring what you're doing, knowing when to buy your milk, except the electricity, knowing when to buy it the cheapest way from the cheapest price possible. And it turns out it works incredibly well. So we are very hopeful that that becomes a standard device that someday you'd buy at Home Depot. That has turned out extremely well. On the other side, in the unexpected category, we, quite by chance, a brilliant PhD student was working, a postdoc was working on a carbon material with water, and discovered a fairly remarkable way to make hydrogen. Hydrogen is a perfect fuel. Problem with the hydrogen economy is we just don't want to be piping it around or plowing it in the back of cars, compressing it in the back of cars and plowing around the highways with it. So he came up with a concept that we can make the hydrogen right where we are, don't really need to source it. We use it, make it from water, and we could be powering a home fairly efficiently with hydrogen. So that's a really promise. Too early really to talk about in much detail, but great stuff. And again, it all comes back somebody brilliant, given them the latitude to go and really open up their brain, push the edge of the envelope. There's no penalty for failure, but just go try something really huge, and every once in a while, you'll find it.
Great. Well, I can't wait to see what other great ideas are out there just waiting for inquisitive people like us to discover them.
Well, let's check back in a number of months on that, and maybe we'll have some more to tell you about that one.
Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Tipping Hall, CEO of Nanoholdings, will check back in a few months to see what kind of awesome new developments your research teams have made. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer our questions here today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for your time too, and hi to everybody who's listening to this.
Take care and keep up the amazing work.
You take care. Bye-bye. Thanks.